If anybody's looking to get us Christmas gifts, by the way, I take a size ounce.
I love it. One size fits all.
It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to episode 47 of the Stoned Witches Hour. On this podcast, two best friends on opposite coasts of the USA get together to smoke copious amounts of cannabis and tell each other spooky tales from across America. Representing the West Coast and all things wild, witchy, and weedy, I'm Layla.
And before I tell you who I am, 47 is my lucky number right now.
No shit, really? Well, happy
Really?
lucky number episode.
So, for lucky 47, I'm Chelle from the East Coast, the best coast, the cold coast.
Pretty chilly over there, eh? Getting some snow?
Lord, it has only just begun. I feel, I just said this the other day. I was born and raised in essentially the Northeast, roughly New England area. My DNA would suggest I was born in Hawaii, for God's sakes.
You cannot handle the cold. You never have been able
You
to.
would think I was born in the cold, like, for the love of the Lord, like, I cannot for the life of me ever, ever, ever acclimate to this weather. I can't.
As long as I've known you in the wintertime, you usually wear at least three pairs of pants, long johns, some other type of loose pant, and then like a fluffy pant over top of that, several shirts, and a blanket, and big, big fluffy socks.
True
Always.
story. But you know what? What makes that all hysterical is
What's
that I
that?
still wear flip-flops in the winter.
That's true. That's true. You do with the
I
big
do.
socks.
I do. But yeah, my DNA would suggest I was born in Hawaii, but here I
Yeah.
am. It's getting cold. And that brings us to our Christmassy stuff.
That's right. This is the first of our three Christmas, Yule. What is it? Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. I don't know. This is the season of lights. All the festival of lights. So many holidays revolving around light and togetherness this time of year.
I think it's Christmas Yule Kawanaka.
Christmas, Yule, Hanukkah.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good, actually. That kind of encompasses a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
For our end of our first year of podcasting and for this holiday season, we have decided to do three episodes
Dickens.
in the theme of
Charles
Dickens,
Dickens.
Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. We are doing three episodes: Ghosts of Christmas Past, Ghosts of Christmas Present, and Ghosts of Christmas Future. And today, for episode 47, we are on the Ghosts of Christmas Past.
I would just like to warn all of our listeners that I think collectively we're only like a quarter sober.
You
Just
or both of us together or
as I said, collectively.
collectively?
Collectively, we're only about a quarter sober.
Yeah, that's a good point because actually I have some fun weed today.
I have a funny weed story for you. It was a funny shopping story that like so worked out in my favor.
Well, while I'm over here coughing my lungs out, why don't you tell us your funny weed story?
So you know how I'm always out for a hot deal because, they charge more than necessary.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to pay these prices.
So I took a little stroll to my favorite place, the old Happy
Happy
Valley.
Valley.
Funny, I haven't been there in a couple weeks. If you recall the last few episodes we've talked, I actually went somewhere else. But so I circled back to Happy Valley this week and I was hot for a deal. And I figure it's December and people are Christmas shopping. They're going to have badass deals
You'd think.
because, let's be realistic. Even one of my adult children has asked for something for Happy Valley for their stocking.
Hey, we all need a little green this time of year. I have to say, stress relief, little
Actually,
relaxation.
it was a
Need it.
peppermint chocolate edible.
Ooh, yummy.
So yeah, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Deal. So I go up there and usually I'm trying to get like the 5/8 deal or the 8 for 8.
Right.
Right. So and I always get eighths. I'm in that mindset. I kind of bulk buy. Who has time to go every day? Geez.
No.
So the problem is I was a little high when I went.
Uh-oh. It's like going shopping hungry. You shouldn't be super high when you go shopping for weed because you're going to buy everything.
No, that wasn't the problem.
What happened?
The problem is I was getting confused.
Oh,
You know
okay.
how, if you're kind of high and like there's too much seriousness going on
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, especially if you're not expecting it.
and everything's going so fast too.
Yeah.
So I go in there and usually there's a line, and in the line they have signs posted of the deals. So I'm used to being able to casually walk in and stand in line and read the deals on the sign before I get to the counter.
Okay.
Sure as shit, nobody's in line. So I get in there and I get called right up to the counter. And
Oh,
I'm
before you've had a chance to peruse the list.
right. So they always, they ask for your ID when you walk in the building, but then they ask for it again when you get up there. So I give them my ID and I start looking at the signs right there. Well, this guy is like, I don't know, he must have had like 8 Red Bulls or something. I am on like super slow speed and he was on like super high speed. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this deal, I thought it was eighths.
Uh-oh. Oh no, Shell, what did you do?
Well, luckily I still got flour, but it was pre-rolls. I thought the deal was it said 5 for 30. So I thought you could get 5/8 for $30 each.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
So
I
I'm
mean,
thinking
expensive as fuck, but reasonable.
not necessarily 5/8 for $150 compared to 5/8 for normally 60. I'm thinking that's half price.
Right, right.
So I'm thinking I'm buying 5/8 for $30 each because
What'd you get?
I'm high and he's talking fast and I'm panicked and I'm feeling rushed. You know
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, were there people waiting behind you? Why was he in such a rush?
I think he had 5 Red Bulls.
Yeah, there you go.
It was a personality thing, I think.
He needed to smoke a
Excited.
little more.
I had never seen him before. He might have been new and excited about his job. I don't know. I ended up with 5 1 gram pre-rolls. But here's the thing and why I wasn't upset about it, because it was 5 1 gram pre-rolls
That's still a deal.
for a total of $30.
I think that's still a really good deal.
So I
Was it
basically,
decent?
oh yeah, it's Endgame. Fuck yeah.
Oh, you love
Oh my
Endgame.
God. So I got 5 grams for $30. Hell of a deal. But then you know how I get socially anyway, and I'm high and I'm panicked and I'm rushed. So of course I'm not going to say, wait, I want eighths. So
Right.
I walk out of the store with 5 1 gram pre-rolls for $30. You know what I do when I get home? I slice
What?
those bitches open and dump them all in a Ziploc bag. And it's like I have 5 grams of ground up weed.
Hey, nice. Very nice. And you don't even have to smoke it in a joint if you don't want to.
Well, you know how I prefer my pipes.
You do.
So
You do.
yeah, I sliced them open, dumped them in a bag, and now I have 5 grams of already ground up weed of Endgame. Love it. And it only cost me $30. So it was kind of a semi-disaster, but I got a good deal. But you know how I get.
Yeah, it's no problem. And honestly, if I'm not going to smoke a whole joint, I don't like
That's
smoking
why.
a
Yeah, that's
smoked,
why.
half smoked joint later because it has taste. I don't love it. I mean, if I'm smoking the whole joint straight through, I don't really notice it as much.
Like if
But
I'm
if,
camping or something, that's one thing. But on the regular, I don't want to be smoking pre-smoked joints. So yeah,
yeah,
that's why part of the reason I sliced it open, put it in the bag, put it in the pipe, smoke it. Yeah, yeah.
gotta be efficient. I love it.
I got high, made a mistake, and made it work.
Do you think that this end game in the joints is older, maybe, or stale, or
I'll tell you what,
shake at all?
it tastes more citrusy. I know that.
Interesting. I wonder
I
why.
feel almost like it tastes better. No shit.
Hmm. Strange.
I feel like I get that citrusy pop more on the green hits.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. Maybe it's something to do with it being so finely ground.
Maybe it's because they do it and I don't know. But yeah, no, I actually feel like I like the taste better.
That's pretty cool.
At the same time, they could have potentially been 2 different batches. It's not like I'm smoking the same batch time after time after time. This batch could just be a tastier batch. I don't know.
That's very true.
You're the grower. Tell me.
I can tell you right now that they've started to do tests on different cultivars across the country, and they're finding Unfortunately, not a lot of correlation. If you test something that's called, say, purple punch in New York, and then you test something called purple punch in California, there's a very small chance that they'll be the same genetically. I believe they've been conducting tests on these, and they found that
So are we
some,
being lied to?
yes, some cultivars are more consistent than others. But honestly, you have all these different growers growing in different states, different countries, all over the place, illegally and on the down low. Who's to fucking say? I mean, if someone came to me 20 years ago and said, this is sour diesel, and there was a bunch of seeds in it, and then I grew it, I'm going to tell you that it's sour diesel. But that guy could have totally fucking lied to me. And
Right.
then the sour diesel that you're smoking in a different state may be something entirely different. And so that's kind of what people are waking up to now, is that most of the time, unless you're getting it from the same breeder consistently, what is Jack Hare here might not be the same as a Jack Hare there, which is legitimately a problem I've run into. I've had a couple Jack Hares that were the best thing I have ever smoked. Spicy, pungent, delicious, sticky, beautiful. And every time I've seen a Jack Hare or a Jack combination, I've bought it and tried it, and I have never found the same one again. It has never been quite that good. I'm still chasing that cultivar, and I know I might not ever find it again because we've been lied to.
Well, I guess the bottom line, the takeaway here, folks, Shell has a takeaway, and that is as long as you're high, no fucks given, zero
Yeah.
fucks given. What does it matter?
As we get more knowledge, I do feel that we're going to leave the indica sativa hybrid nomenclature and go more on a terpene profile. They might still use those names, but less of trying to say that that's what kind of plant it is, because even those have kind of lost meaning as these different land races have evolved and been bred and hybrid into other things. They might say, this is an indica type plant, and then they'll tell you the terpene profile. They'll tell you how many CBDs and how much CBG is in it, and if it's a limonene or a pinene dominant, and then people will be able to make choices that way. I think it's just going to change.
That sounds super complex. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's actually no more complex than what we have right now. They're just going to slightly change the names to be more accurate. And you'll flow into it, Shell, without any problem. I mean, what did we used to have, Shell?
Dirtweed, hydro, brickweed, the goods. Remember we call it the goods.
Yes, I
Um,
remember.
but but
And now it's all different. Now it's indica, it's sativa, it's hybrid, it's
but
indica dominant, sativa
everything you're
dominant.
saying to me sounds so much like federal regulation, and that's yucky.
No, not federal regulation, Shell. Knowledge, science. This is going to give us all the goods. This is going to give us the what's good for a headache, what's good for cramps, what's good for back pain, what's good for sleep, what's good for weight loss. This is going to give us all the wonderful benefits that this plant can provide, and give us a better way to get to it.
But the only way to make sure that the white wedding in California and the white wedding in Massachusetts are the same white wedding is to regulate.
Yeah, that's true. And as a grower, I kind of want that. I mean, there's a fine
Yeah,
line.
but once there's regulation, you won't be able to be a grower. Don't you see what I'm saying?
That's why we have to be careful with the types of regulations. And I completely agree with you. It's a fine line. I want regulations that will help me to say these white widow seeds are genetically similar to these white widow seeds. But I don't want regulation that says these white widow seeds have been genetically modified to only grow with our specific nutrients and only in our specific soil and only if you use our specific pesticides and have a license. I don't want that. I don't want it to get that far. So we need to have people active like you in it, who are active for home growers, who are saying keep the regulations as small as possible. And people like me who are growers that say we need some regulations to keep things safe and fair for everybody, but don't go too far.
But you have to remember, you are in America. You cannot have your cake and eat it too.
I know. I know. I'm a Pollyanna. You know me. I want the best out of everything.
You can't have free regulation. That's not
Right.
the American way.
Right. I want just enough regulation to give the end user and the grower the best possible product they can possibly have. I want to use the science and the regulation to know as much about this plant as we can get.
If the federal government ends up doing what they normally do, so let's create a department of marijuana and have Layla be the secretary of marijuana.
They should have somebody who's an advocate and a passionate lover of the plant be in charge of that if they're going to do it.
The list is long and distinguished.
So that's the depressing part of what Chelle is smoking. But here's a fun thing about being able to name your weed whatever the fuck you want to. I am currently smoking something named after one of my current favorite shows. I have been watching Cobra Kai. Have you seen any of this, Chelle?
Oh my God, I've watched that once it dropped, so I've seen every season on the day it's been released. I've watched it.
Yay! Huge fan over here too. Love, love, love that show. Such a nostalgia hit. Oh my gosh, so freaking much fun.
Have you seen them? Have you seen every episode or every season already?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank God. So I love Johnny.
Oh my gosh, is he not the worst and also the best?
I feel like he got a bad rap back when
Of
we were
course he
kids,
got a
when we
bad
were teenagers. He got a bad rap.
Before even these shows came out, I saw a couple things where people had put stuff together that said that Johnny got a bad rap and that the bad guy was actually Danny.
Yeah,
And it might have kind of been. He was kind of a bully.
yeah, yeah. It's different. There's always two sides to every story, man.
That's right. And I do really appreciate a lot of shows, in particular Cobra Kai, showing us that no one is all good, no one is all bad. There's always nuance and more to the story than you might think there is.
And can I tell you why it works so well?
Why is that, Shell?
Because it is as many of the original cast as humanly possible, and that literally is how they pulled it off.
Completely agree.
They couldn't have done that with different actors.
Every time they bring back another character, I gasp and I'm
You're
so
like,
excited
oh my God.
all over again. So much fun. But what I am smoking today, I found at a little shop up in Riverside that I had never been to before. This is from a farm called Ball Family Farms, and it's called Daniel LaRusso.
Wasn't that set in or near Riverside?
Okay, so they moved from Newark, New Jersey to Reseda, Los Angeles, California. So Riverside is very, very near to Los Angeles. It's basically like a suburb of LA.
I
It's
got
just
you.
outside of it. And Reseda is much closer to LA. So he lived in LA and it was filmed in a bunch of different locations. I don't believe any of the filming locations were in Riverside, but they were in Arizona and around Southern California. So it's a Daniel LaRusso by Ball Family Farms, and their description is wax on, wax off. Daniel Daniel LaRusso is a high potency hybrid strain that can floor even experienced smokers. It has an acrid aroma that will turn heads, leaving everyone asking who's holding the fire. It is said to taste like herbs, fruit, and pepper. And guess what its THC is, Shell? You're never going to guess. It's 38.3%.
So basically, when you smoke the Daniel LaRusso, you feel like you got crane kicked.
That's right, right to the head. I love it. It's fantastic. And it really does taste peppery, which is something I adore in a smoke. It's got a delicious taste.
Yeah, I really wish you could mail that to me.
Right? I wish I could too. So yeah, I've been crane kicked straight to the head by Danny. And yeah, it's pretty good stuff. My eyes are all getting heavy and I'm feeling very talkative. So I'm liking it. I'm liking it. It's definitely got a thumbs up. Still expensive, $60 for an eighth. Hate that. But my homegrown is kicking the dry stuff. All right, it's still over dried and crappy, but it smokes nice. And I have more things drying right now as we speak, so it's getting better.
Well, honestly, I don't think we can complain about our weed.
No, I do not complain.
We've smoked worse.
That's right. And I consider myself very lucky to smoke as much as I do. So,
Don't we have some spookiness to talk about tonight?
we do indeed. We do. So, we're talking about ghosts of Christmas past. And this evening, when I talk about my story, I'm going to be talking about the Fort Worth Trio, which is a group of young girls who went missing on Christmas Eve in Fort Worth, Texas in 1974.
Ooh.
How about you? What are you talking about this evening, Chelle?
So the only part I really kind of followed on our Ghost of Christmas Past is that this happened a little bit ago.
Okay, that's fine. Interpret that shit however you want, Chelle. I'm not going to judge.
And it was during Christmas time.
Perfect.
Actually, you know how I get about stuff, and it's your fault.
It always is.
It is.
Hmm.
You sent me an article
Oh, no.
about a Bigfoot sighting near the town that we've come from. So,
Ah, okay.
and it because it happened around the Christmas season, I was compelled. So we are going to talk about a Bigfoot sighting in Tioga County, Pennsylvania.
The Queen of Cryptids is back for Christmas. I love it.
Yes, and it's Layla's fault. So it didn't happen today, so obviously it's in the past. So yeah. That's how I interpreted Christmas past.
That works. Yeah, I went back and forth on a couple different ways to do it. So I thought about revisiting some old stories and talking about some ghost stories that we've already covered and maybe adding new details. I wasn't sure, but I found this one and it's really creepy and spooky and interesting. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So tell me a little about your cryptid, Shell.
So there was this family, and this actually, ironically, was just last year. That's what makes me love it. You know, they always say that Bigfoot is usually a Northwest thing.
Yeah.
As a teenager, there were sightings in upstate New York of Bigfoot. I actually still to this day have the news articles. I was always a huge proponent of Bigfoot was not just a Northwest thing.
No, he does seem to be seen pretty much all over the country, including, I believe you've talked before about a like an East Coast corridor. Almost it seems like a migratory corridor possibly on the East Coast.
Right, right. Coming down from Canada kind of thing.
Yeah.
We are from a close proximity to where this sighting is.
Yeah.
So this was in Tioga County, Pennsylvania, and this was last December, December 2nd, 2021. So you're familiar with rural North Pennsylvania,
Yes, I am.
very densely wooded.
Okay.
I feel like New York and Pennsylvania is nothing but trees. So this family, they're going down to cut down a Christmas tree. And they're going down this road that the way I read it and what it makes me think of kind of knowing the area is that they were probably on Pennsylvania state game lands and going down one of those like dirt roads through the
Okay.
woods. It's like the government keeps up the road, but it's dirt, it's not paved, and there's nothing but woods. So they find this tree, whatever. They stop to cut it, and they're kind of doing their thing, and they feel like a tree branch just kind of falls out of nowhere, maybe 10 feet away.
Startling, but it happens sometimes in the woods.
I mean, so here they are, this family, you're cutting down a tree. Maybe the tree knocked something above that could have loosened an already broken branch and caused it to move and fall.
Sure. Or heavy snow or something can break a dead branch down over time.
Right, right. The thing is that then two of the family members felt like they saw something like almost like being thrown,
Oh, okay.
like being thrown sideways, but maybe about 15 to 20 feet away from them and not necessarily in their direction.
So almost like someone was throwing something in their vicinity, but not necessarily at them.
Right. Almost like
Trying to get their attention, maybe?
maybe. So they thought, being in that area, there's animals, there's deer too. And they're
Sure.
thinking, you know, either we knocked something, maybe we saw something, whatever. So as they're walking down this hill, they're dragging their tree, they got their tree, everything's all copacetic. And out of the corner of the eye, somebody thinks they see like a figure.
Oh, okay. So now maybe someone's fucking with them, like there's someone else in the woods that they see.
Right. Because the person was described, they kind of described it, let's see, about 7 feet tall. Because at first they thought it was a bear, but then they realized that bears don't really get more, especially in that area anyway, about 150 to 200 pounds, because there are black bears in that area.
And I don't think a black bear is going to be 7 feet tall when they stand up.
Right. So they kind of saw it like almost like if it was like running away from them off into the distance. So the dad kind of goes in that direction from like where they saw it initially.
Okay.
And, you know, beginning of December, northern Pennsylvania, snowy.
It's cold.
He finds a footprint
Like a
and
boot?
no, but like a footprint that
No
was
shit.
kind of described similar to a human barefoot, but like 5 times the size.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's creepy.
So, like, essentially what you have come to know in all your
Yeah,
life is
like
like a Bigfoot imprint.
your stereotypical Bigfoot imprint.
They come over, they're looking at the thing, they hear something fly over their head. They see a branch landing on top of the hill over to the side, which is only like a little ways away. They look in the direction it came from and see something like retreating down the hill into the brush. They got a better glimpse of it and noticed, okay, I'm high, and this, I don't understand what this word means.
What
Explain
word?
this to me. They described him as bipedal. Does that mean on 2 feet?
Yes.
Okay. Big and tall and hairy. They were surprised at how fast it made it to the top of the hill because they thought it made it to the top of the hill in seconds.
Oh, wow.
And
So really fast.
kind of when you look at something, you kind of know my fat ass couldn't do that. And that, they knew that it's
Right.
not something they could have necessarily done. And that, so like it moved really fast and was really big. 2 feet, hairy. They run to the car because the car was only about 20 yards away or so. And they said, everybody's yelling, what'd you see? What was that? Oh my God. And they're like, they're not sure, but they know that there's something down there throwing things at them.
Okay.
Now, this is where I get kind of confused. These are supposed to be elusive. Okay. Why would they throw things at people?
This isn't the first time I've heard of Bigfoots, big feet, Sasquatches,
I don't
Sasquatches. First
Sasquatch.
time I've heard of Sasquatches throwing things at people. It seems to be a common thing. I've heard them throwing poo. I've heard them throwing rotten food. I've heard of them throwing pine cones. So this seems to be something that they do. Maybe it's when you get too close to something. I don't know, but this is not the first story where I've heard of a Bigfoot throwing things at people.
Notice me, don't notice me, notice me, don't notice me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not a common story, but it's common enough that I've heard quite a few of them.
Basically, they get all freaked out, jump in the car. Dad's like, let's get the hell out of here. So they're on their way out. They're driving down the road. Okay. So they're about 2 miles down the road, and a pickup truck comes flying up behind them and won't back off. First
Oh,
of
I
all,
hate when that happens, especially at night.
when you're in that part of Pennsylvania, be afraid.
It's probably a
That's
couple of good old boys out to cause trouble.
my personal belief. If you're not from around there, tread lightly. So anyway, so pickup coming up behind them won't back off. So they pull over and they assumed that the truck would pass them.
It didn't.
Truck pulls up next to them,
Yeah.
rolls down the window.
Ah, shit. They're in big trouble now.
It ended up being a guy that knew the father of this family.
Oh, well, there you go. Your two options in rural PA is it's going to be someone who's going to give you a hard time, or it's someone who knows someone that you're related to.
Right, pretty much. Or that you're related to.
Exactly.
So he rolls down the window and he ended up being someone he knew. And the guy's like freaking out, terrified. Like they described the guy as terrified. And the guy started screaming, "Get your ass out of here. I just saw Bigfoot."
No shit. The truck driver?
Well, it wasn't a truck driver, it's like a pickup truck.
We're right. The pickup truck guy that came up driving behind them was all freaked out over the Bigfoot.
So the family of four sees it, has stuff thrown at him. The pickup truck driver sees it.
Did they say no shit? We saw it too.
That wasn't a part of the
No.
information I
Okay.
found.
So
So they, they're talking to the guy for a minute and they asked him, where did you see Bigfoot? And I guess there were other people not too far away that were also up there cutting a tree for Christmas and saw it basically standing on the side of the road. I did find out at the very end of my stuff that this was actually on how they label these is weird, but it was Pennsylvania State Game Lands number 208. It was off Route 349, 2 miles north of Gaines, PA.
wow, and they saw this last year.
This was December 2nd, 2021. And so you now have 5 people, plus this didn't even have any sort of interview or story or backing about the other group that was supposedly, the pickup truck driver said other people saw it when they were cutting down a tree. I never found anything about them or any story about them. So there was at least 5, if not more people that had a Bigfoot sighting in that area.
Really?
2 separate sightings about 2 miles apart. The pickup truck driver, again, was about 2 miles away from where the family had been cutting down their tree initially and saw it.
That's very intriguing to have that many different groups of people all see the same thing at the same time or around on the same date, rather.
I believe in Bigfoot. People laugh at me sometimes and people pick on me, but damn it, Sasquatch is real. And these stories just, they reiterate my point.
We find new species all the time. There are more things on this planet that we have not yet discovered, particularly in the deep oceans, but also in the forests. And so, who's to say that there's not something out there, some very rare species that we have only caught glimpses of? I'm not going to deny that there's a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch because I don't have enough information. I definitely think there's a possibility. It could be out there.
Well, here's my theory. Considering as a teenager, there was a Bigfoot sighting. Well, actually, there was multiple. It kind of went on every day for like a week.
Yeah, you said you have the newspaper clipping.
There were sightings, and some of these sightings were literally within a mile of my childhood home. And the proximity of where I grew up to where this story is, okay, we're talking a few decades gap, but it is not out of the realm of possibility that could be a corridor, a passageway, part of their trail or track. I don't know what you'd call it. Their herd line. I don't know.
It very well could be.
Their migration path, whatever the fuck you call it. But it's not the first sighting in a relatively close proximity over a long period of time.
I did find that New York ranks the 5th in Bigfoot sightings in the country.
No shit.
No shit.
Are they one of the top states on the East Coast? Just curious.
I don't know. The thing only said it's the 5th. I don't have the whole list.
Oh, okay. I found it. So let's see. Let me pull this up. I am not seeing like a big, huge article per se, but what I am finding is that in the winter, actually, there's a couple. This is actually kind of weird. I looked up Broome County, New York, because I was looking to see if I could find what I was specifically looking for. So this was they're saying, it just says 1985 or 86.
So that's pretty close, right?
Right, to what I was saying. I said like mid-80s. It just says this occurred while someone was standing enjoying the view of the woods not far from their house. They had a dog with them. They weren't actually in the woods themselves, but across the creek from the woods. So they saw something that was bipedal. They saw it from the waist down. The rest was hidden by leaves and trees. The legs that they saw were stocky, not bent in any way. The hair was quite long. They estimated that the hair was about 4 to 5 inches long, and it was like a golden reddish brown. They saw it slowly turn, take a few steps, and disappear in the underbrush.
I love how all the Sasquatches can do that. Like two steps in the woods and they like disappear. Just like
Right.
almost any other creature. Like you see a rabbit or a deer, they can do that too. So can a Bigfoot.
So, like I said, that was mid 80s, but I actually found another one in the same county in 1995, and another one in 1998 in the winter again. Must be something about fall and winter on the East Coast.
Maybe again something to do with that migratory pattern.
I know, right? The person's report says that it was after a big snowstorm. It had been snowing for a long time. There was about a foot or two of snow on the ground. And at about 11 p.m., they had gone out to shovel snow, and they distinctly felt like they were being watched. It is someone who was used to being in the area because, again, we're from a very like kind of wooded area,
Yeah.
but felt like they were being watched and got very creeped out. Had a dog with him again, but the guy just like he definitely felt like he was being watched. The dog then all of a sudden acted freaked out and was trying to get in, like kind of wanting to go into the house when normally the dog liked being out in the snow, apparently.
That's always a bad sign.
Right. So he opened the door to his porch, and the dog flew in and like cowered. So it kind of made the guy like scared to go and like kind of ran into the house. He turned around and looked out the door, and he said he saw these glowing eyes. He looked straight ahead in the direction of his driveway and saw the eyes looking at him. They were glowing like an animal's eyes would, high in the air, like a person standing. He said it felt like they made like eye contact, basically.
Oh, creepy.
He couldn't, in his mind, figure out what it was. He knew it wasn't a deer because it was standing upright. But he knew it wasn't a person, and he knew it wasn't a bear, and it had the long hair. And it was, dark in color because it was 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
He said he was just overtook by terror because he couldn't, for the life of him, compute what he was seeing.
Wow.
But he said it was only about 25 feet away from him standing on his porch. He heard strange knocking noises, which again is something that is
Yeah, that we've heard that
their
before in
thing.
regards to,
Yeah.
yeah.
He said it sounded like someone was knocking on a hollow tree.
Wasn't there someone who even thought that they had had like a knocking conversation with a Bigfoot?
Yeah. And then basically his son, I didn't catch an age on it, was out feeding the chickens the next day and heard high-pitched screaming type sounds.
Oh, very creepy.
And they weren't animal like or human like, and all he can just basically he just for the life of him, and even still years after that, he still hears on occasion strange knockings and screamings in the woods.
So maybe something kind of lives there or goes through there.
Right.
Wow.
And on occasion he feels like he's being watched, and on occasion the dogs freak out.
Hmm. Creepy. Certainly sounds like there's something in that part of New York State.
And he is also from a wooded, hilly, kind of mountainous area of there. So, it is definitely the environment, but I'm telling you, Bigfoot, he comes and chills out in upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania. Just saying.
I guess so. Who knew you would have such a close and personal relationship with such an elusive cryptid?
So it seems like there's a story like every 10 or 15 years. So maybe it is just a migratory thing.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's a generational migration. Maybe they just go every decade or something.
Because you figure 85, 95, and 98, there happened to be a couple. And then 2021, not too far away. I mean, okay, maybe that second gap was big, but it's not like it's every season, is what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. So I don't know, any cryptozoologists in the house? Email us, let us know. Is this a migratory pattern? Do they have some type of breeding cycle or travel cycle? I don't know. Every 5 years, every 10 years? I'm curious.
I want Bigfoot to come to Massachusetts.
I bet there have been Bigfoot sightings in Massachusetts.
Another episode.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that and see. So that happened while they were going to get a Christmas tree last year, just last year.
I know, crazy.
I always think that like Bigfoot sightings are going to be, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, but no, they're happening right now, all over the place.
Bigfoot's in the house, man.
So, for our second Ghost of Christmas Past story, I'm going to tell you a ghost story about three young women who went missing on December 24th. Well, technically December 23rd of 1974.
Can I just point out, I have some weird thing with cryptids, and you have some weird thing with missing women.
Right? Missing people, man, it kind of sucks.
So what town, what state, what city, where's this from?
All right, we're going to Fort Worth, Texas,
Okay.
the morning of December 23rd, 1974.
The day before the night before Christmas.
That's right, Christmas Eve Eve. On this day, 17-year-old Rachel Arnold, whose married name, let that sink in, is Terlisa. So Rachel Terlisa wanted to pick something up that she had on layaway at a local Army Navy store.
Do you remember layaway? Do they
I
even
do.
do that anymore?
Take that hit, girl. Suck it down. That good old end game. All right, well, I'm going to take a hit too then.
I can't help it. It's so fruity and citrusy and tasty.
And so good. You have like fruity, citrusy, and I have like peppery, spicy. I'm loving it. So you're not going to say anything about the fact that she's 17 and married?
I'm still stuck on the fact that she was doing layaway.
All
I mean,
right.
okay. I mean, not that I'm saying that's right and I agree, but I am fully aware that there are some states that do condone 17 being the legal age of consent, and that is not something we're going to argue here. So I hear you. I hear you, but I'm stuck on layaway, man. Layaway.
It was also 1974, and you weren't even a twinkle yet.
I know, right?
So Rachel Terlisa was going to pick up something from layaway and also hoping to do some Christmas shopping for her 2-year-old stepson at the local mall called Seminary South. She had asked her sister, Deborah, to go with her, but Deborah had stayed up really late playing canasta.
On what?
Do you know how to play canasta?
What is that?
I'm not, it's a card game, but beyond that, I have no idea.
No clue.
So she'd stayed up too late. I'm not going. Now, there's weird things about Deborah, too. Can we just say this? Because Rachel's married to Tommy Terlisa. They got married like the day after her 17th birthday. He's 20, been married before, has a 2-year-old kid.
Red flag.
Oh, there's more red flag, Chelle. He was at one time engaged to Deborah, Rachel's older sister. And Deborah says that engagement was just kind of frivolous. They weren't really together. It was just not a serious relationship at all, but they got engaged. And now that Rachel and Tommy are married, guess who lives in the same house with them? Deborah.
So,
So anyway,
are we talking like sister wives here?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. There's a lot going on, and I really think possibly what was going on there is that Rachel and Deborah did not have the best childhood. There are a lot of rumors that there was quite a bit of abuse going on in that household, including that their father sexually abused them. So the fact that they both jumped to get engaged to someone and then moved out of the house into his home speaks to the fact that there might be some truth to those rumors. But
Right.
that's a different story, and we'll get into that a little more later. Rachel asked her sister to go with her, and Deborah doesn't want to go. She's too tired. So Rachel asked her close friend, Renee Wilson, who's 14. And Rachel and Renee kind of grew up together. Whenever Renee would go visit her grandmother, it was very close to Rachel's house. And so they kind of grew up as kids together and were very close friends.
Deborah was probably getting busy with the husband, just saying, keep going.
It's entirely possible. So Renee Wilson says, yes, she would love to go to the mall. She also wants to get some presents for Rachel's 2-year-old stepson. Now, Renee's boyfriend, Terry Mosley, is coming over before Renee leaves with Rachel to go to the mall. And Terry gives her her Christmas gift early, and it's a promise ring.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
Isn't that so sweet? They were so in love, and she was ecstatic over the moon for her sweet little promise ring. Renee asked Terry to go with her and Rachel to the mall, and he wanted to, but he said he had promised his friend that he would go with him to the hospital, and so he couldn't go. His little sister, Julianne Mosley, who's 9, overhears this conversation and decides she wants to tag along with the older girls. And she begs and begs and begs her mother if she can go. Normally, Mrs. Mosley would say no, but there's a lot of shit going on. She doesn't want to deal with a nagging little girl. And
Just lets her go.
just says, okay, fine. Especially when she finds out that Renee was planning on being back to get ready for a party that was going to be starting at 4 o'clock. So she knew the girls would be home early, and she told Julie Ann to be home by 6 p.m. at the latest, and it should be no problem. She knew Renee and Rachel were going to be home by 4, so no big deal. Get her out of her hair. So the little 9-year-old goes with 14-year-old Renee and 17-year-old Rachel. They head to the local Army Navy surplus store, and Rachel picks up her layaway, which was a really nice pair of hip hugger jeans. She immediately changes out of her old leggings and puts on the jeans, and then puts the old leggings in the trunk of the car. This is roughly around noon or so, and it's the last confirmed time that anyone saw those 3 girls. They then leave the surplus store and they go to the Seminary South Mall. And Rachel parks the car on the upper side. You know how sometimes malls are built, they're not really 2 levels, but it might be kind of built into a hill. So part of
Yeah.
it's so she parked on the upper side near the Sears, in the Sears parking lot. And around 4 o'clock, Renee doesn't show up for the party, and people start to get worried. And then by 6 p.m., when Julianne Mosley's not home, her parents start to get worried. The families go to the mall and start looking for the girls. They find Rachel's 1972 Oldsmobile 98 in the Sears parking lot with all the doors locked. On the floor of the back seat is a wrapped Christmas present. The girls are nowhere to be found. Rachel's mother and her 11-year-old brother, Rusty, go through the mall, up and down the mall, asking if anyone has seen the girls. Renee was wearing kind of a very distinctive outfit. From what I hear, she was wearing kind of purplish, bluish colored hip hugger bell bottoms, along with like a lime yellow green top that said "Sweet Honesty" on it on the front. And so people remembered them because it was 3 pretty young girls in the mall, and also that bright, distinctive Sweet Honesty sweatshirt that Renee was wearing. So they'd seen them throughout the day at the mall in several places. There are reports, some that happened at the time and some later, that a couple people remembered seeing a man, possibly a security guard, with the girls, and that maybe they saw them in the truck of a security guard in the parking lot. But there's still no sight of the girls.
And in 1974, there's no cameras anywhere.
Exactly. So at this time, they notify the Fort Worth police, and the case was handed over to the Youth Division of the Fort Worth Police Department's Missing Persons Bureau. The police also questioned people at the mall, and they get a little more information. One woman said she saw 3 girls being kind of hustled or pushed into a pickup truck by a man who may or may not have been a security guard. Another person said that they saw the girls in the company of someone who looked like a security guard, and that they got into his truck. But these eyewitnesses couldn't be found again, and these reports could not be corroborated.
And nobody had a license plate, of course.
Nothing. There was nothing. These eyewitness accounts did not make it into any of the official police reports because the people could not be found again. Couldn't be corroborated, I guess. So since there was no sign of foul play, there was nothing to indicate what had happened to the girls. The police just presumed that they were runaways, which happened a lot at that time. Any teenager, any young person in the 70s and 80s that disappeared, you were fucked because they were just like, oh, it's a runaway.
Yeah.
And until these kids started turning up dead, they would pretty much just close the case and assume it was a runaway. So they did that here as well. Richard Wilson, who was Renee's father and also Rachel's father, along with a neighbor, grabbed some shotguns and climbed up on top of a car dealership or a car repair shop that was across the street from the mall, and had clear line of sight to the Sears parking lot, and they could see the Oldsmobile from that position. And they staked it out the entire night, hoping that someone would come back to the car, either preferably the girls or possibly a perpetrator who might know what happened to the girls.
I feel like that's a tad dramatic, just saying.
Yeah, odds of something being found there are a little, slim to none.
I'm thinking more of the shotguns on the roof.
Right? I mean, yeah, what did they think was going to happen? But unfortunately, they saw nothing. So the next morning, Tommy, Rachel's husband, got a letter in the mail. It was an envelope written in pencil. It was addressed to Thomas A. Terlisha instead of Tommy, as he was mostly known by. In the return address area of the envelope, all it said was Rachel. The letter inside was very big. It was obviously a piece of paper that wasn't meant to go in like that envelope. And that was written in pen. And it said, I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel. Now, the Rachel that the letter was signed with, instead of ending EL, like her name, it was ended EE, and the last E was overwritten to make it an L. So it looked like it had been written by someone who didn't know how to spell Rachel. Or some theorize, possibly written under duress by Renee, who would have normally signed her name with two E's at the end. The letter itself was given to the police and then later to the FBI, and handwriting analysis was done on it, but they couldn't determine if it was actually Rachel's handwriting or not. To this day, it's still inconclusive. The letter did come through the mail, and it did have a postmark on it, an inked postmark. It was postmarked with a zip code that was 76083, and the 3 on it looked like it was backwards, like it was either applied backwards by a hand-loaded stamp or possibly was an 8 or something like that. And so there was a lot of discussion as to where this letter had been dropped in the mail. If it was 76038, that would be Eliasville, or 76088, which would be Weatherford, which were very far away, not really near Fort Worth. And so this kind of muddied the waters quite a bit. Where did this letter come from? When could it have been put in the mail if it was received by Tommy the very next morning after the girls disappeared? I did find some facts on that by someone who worked in the post office back in the 70s. And they said in 1974, the way postmarks worked weren't exactly like zip codes are today. The first 3 numbers, the 7, 6, and the 0, stand for different things. The 7 is the code for Texas, 6 is for Tarrant County, and 0 is for the city of Fort Worth. And then the next 2 digits are actually a number and a letter. And in this case, it's 3B like boy, which is a code for the machine that processed that mail. And at that time period, people have also shown us 7601A, 3A, and in this case, it's 3B. So that means that this was actually processed in Fort Worth by the post office. What people now think, Richard Wilson, again, Renee's father, says that there's a little satellite post office. You know how some malls have like those little small post office where you can drop things off?
Yeah.
So there was a little satellite post office at one end, the opposite end of Seminary South from where Rachel had parked. So at the opposite end of the mall, there's this little post office, and it's theorized that that's where the girls dropped this letter off, whether under their own will or under duress. But they're pretty sure that's where it was dropped off that day, and then it was able to be delivered the very next day. So who wrote it and why? Where did these girls go? And did Rachel write it? Why did she misspell her own name? And why would she address it to Thomas and not Tommy? Some people think that because Rachel was the oldest one and it was her car, she's the one with a driver's license, that maybe it was addressed to her home because, if she had a driver's license there, someone else could have used that to address the letter rather than her addressing it herself. The families did not feel that the girls could possibly be runaways. No 9-year-old kid is going to run away 2 days before Christmas. And Renee had got a promise ring from her boyfriend. She was looking forward to a party. Rachel was, by all accounts, a newlywed. She'd been married for 6 months. Things seemed to be fine there. Nobody knew what had happened to these girls. They questioned people. The family hired a private detective named John Swaim in 1975 because they've had no answers in years. He called press conference after press conference. He reopened investigations. He contacted all sorts of eyewitnesses. He followed up on all sorts of tips and uncovered nothing. He worked the case for about 3 years, and he's credited with getting the police to get more actively involved in the search for the missing girls, but he wasn't able to uncover much information. Mysteriously, in 1979, John Swaim killed himself with a drug overdose and left a note stating that all of his files on every case he's ever worked should be destroyed, and they were. So they don't even have any information on what happened, on what he uncovered about these girls. So there have been numerous theories as to what happened to them. Maybe they ran away, but again, why would they? There was a 28-year-old man in the area that had been making obscene phone calls, and he worked at a store where Rachel had applied. And it was found that he had been making obscene phone calls to her and to other girls that had applied to that store. Nothing came out of that lead. He wasn't found to have anything to do with it. So in the area at the same time that these girls went missing was a serial killer named James McAlpin. Now keep in mind, he's been known to not be a reliable narrator, but he was with a young woman that went by several names, one of which was Mercedes, and he ended up killing her. And she was, for a long time, called the El Dorado Jane Doe until they determined that he had murdered her and her name was Mercedes. But he says that Mercedes, when she grew up, had grown up in like the slave trade, like the sex slave trade,
Oh, yeah.
and that she grew up in captivity with these three girls who had been kidnapped from a Fort Worth mall, and
Oh,
that they had been forced into child prostitution for years and then voluntarily, as they grew up, stayed there, and that the youngest girl died giving birth.
oh shit.
Whether this is true or not, I mean, he said stuff like, quote, "These girls were like sisters to Mercedes. We used to visit them. They grew up in captivity in the Dallas Fort Worth area, sometimes in the same town where their parents were. By the time they were adults, they were willing members of the stable. The younger girl died giving birth to a child." It's also rumored that Rachel still visits Fort Worth and goes close to her family's home every Christmas, and that she's been sighted there multiple times. Again, these are all very unreliable. James
Right.
McAlpin is a known liar. And if Rachel has been seen coming to Fort Worth every Christmas, why doesn't she come forward now? It's been 40 plus years, 50 years. Why doesn't she talk to her family?
Hard to admit that you agreed to stay.
Yeah. So it's just so mysterious and so strange. Why would these girls go to the mall to go Christmas shopping and then suddenly decide to go to Houston? Renee and Julianne weren't even planning on going. They were asked at the last minute. I mean, what the hell happened to these girls?
They had to have been kidnapped.
They had to, but how do you kidnap three girls? My theory is that I agree with you. I think they were kidnapped too. And I'm pretty sure that all these vague reports of the girls being seen with someone who is a security guard, I think that if you wanted to kidnap someone in the 1970s, all you had to do is pretend to be an authority figure, right?
Right.
Walk up to them and be like, "I saw that little one shoplifting. You girls better come with me or you're all going to get in trouble." If that was the case, why have them write a letter? Like, who wrote the letter? I just don't understand. It's very strange.
They might have been stalked and targeted,
It could have been, but
or
there's
at least
no.
Rachel could have been targeted, and it just so happened the others were kind of collateral damage.
That is entirely possible. And it is rumored that Rachel was pregnant by her father at the time of her disappearance. And there's even some rumors that her father was in trouble with the IRS or possibly with had some gambling debts and owed some money to some very bad people. And so there is one rumor that says that he sold those three girls into slavery. But again, no one really knew that Renee and Julianne were going to go. So that doesn't make sense.
Like I said, collateral damage.
They very well could have been
When you got
collateral
it, when you got
damage.
a crazy mofo who's got a plan, sometimes when the plan doesn't go as planned, you accommodate. You think you're kidnapping one, and well, the plans changed. You're taking all three.
That very well could have been.
Now or never, because this is my plan.
Super creepy. And a few times they've reopened this case and they've gone back and questioned a lot of the old witnesses. Rusty, the brother of Rachel, has not let this go. He's written a song, he's given interview after interview. He ran a Facebook page. At one time a few years ago, he spearheaded an initiative and they ended up dredging a local lake and pulling up three different vehicles. I believe two of them helped solve other cold cases, but unfortunately not the one involving his sister. But he's very dogged. I also just recently learned that one of the last surviving parents passed away.
Oh, wow.
They're all everyone. Unfortunately, they're passing away without ever getting any information on what happened to their
No
daughters.
closure.
There's no closure here. But a lot of the people, the witnesses that are being re-interviewed, again, this whole security guard thing is popping up on multiple occasions, and people describe different cars. Like one person said a truck, another person said a van, someone I believe said a yellow truck, but they all talk about some type of vehicle, like a security vehicle and a security guard. So it's almost possible that your idea of an abduction and my idea that maybe someone pretending to be an authority figure kind of hustled them away and then forced them to write the note, or maybe forced Renee to write the note.
Or it was premeditated and they had the note ready.
That's possible too. Maybe someone not related to maybe none of the girls wrote the note and the kidnapper wrote the note. I don't know. I do know there was some killers going around that time, like the BTK and Ted Bundy, and a few of them would talk about taking people's pictures. Like they'd be like, "Hey, you could be a model. Why don't you come to Houston with me and we'll take your picture?" But I don't know. Just so creepy at right around Christmas to have these three kids just disappear and to have no reason and no explanation for why. So sad. I've got the chronic ghost of, I don't know.
Cough to get off, man.
That's right. Christmas coffin. Um, so creepy. I just, the reason this case gets me is it's just these girls disappeared into thin air. And because the police labeled it as a runaway in the beginning, the car was released to Rachel's husband, Tommy, the very next day, Christmas Eve. He drove that car home. They didn't dust it for prints. They didn't check the car out. Nothing.
It was also the 70s, though.
It was. They thought at one time that the girls had made it back to the car at some point during their shopping trip because of that present on the floor in the back seat. But that turned out to have been a present that Renee had given to Rachel before they even left. It was a present to Rachel's 2-year-old stepson from Renee. And in the trunk, they found the pants that Rachel had changed out of when she put on the pants she'd gotten off of layaway. But nothing else really. But it's just the letter coming the very next day. I mean, post offices worked pretty quickly back in those days, but who wrote it?
I'm going with premeditated.
You think it was someone that was stalking Rachel? She was a very pretty girl.
I mean, maybe it was the dad, maybe it was a stalker. I don't know what to say about that, but I'm going with premeditated.
Do you think they were kidnapped and sold into the sex slave trade? Or do you
I
think that
do.
they were killed? Do you think someone was out to kill Rachel? Maybe the dad, if she was
Here's the
pregnant with
thing.
his child.
You have unreliable people telling stories, but those stories do kind of coincide. That's the thing.
That's what struck me, is that even though the witnesses didn't really have a lot to say, there was enough that corroborated the security guard. And I really
Similar.
think, yeah, I do think that someone pretended to
And
be an
even the
authority
sex
figure.
slave thing.
Yeah. Whether they were killed or kidnapped, pretty much the only way you could get three girls to do what you want to do is to be an authority figure and have them be scared.
Right.
So my guess is I don't think you could get them to like go to Houston to take pictures and be models with a 9-year-old who wants to
Right.
go home for Christmas. But if they were scared because one of them had maybe gotten caught shoplifting, or maybe implied that they were shoplifting and going to get in trouble, then you could force them to go quietly along with an authority figure who
Right.
then could then kill them or kidnap them at their leisure.
I just think that back then there was a lot of killers and kidnappers and stuff like that going on that just went unresolved, unfortunately.
I think so too. They just didn't have the type of things that we do now in order to be able to connect things.
A lot of people
Particularly,
got caught, but a lot of people got away with it.
exactly, people got caught because they confessed or they happened to be there or someone saw them. But pretty much if no one saw you do it and you didn't leave some big clue
There
behind,
wasn't DNA and shit.
they couldn't even talk to each other. If you committed a crime in Fort Worth, Texas, and then went to Arizona to kidnap somebody, you could do it exactly the same way. and they would never talk to each other. You know, we had talked before when we did the dueling axe murderers episode, we talked about the all across the country around that same time, there were people, particularly near railroads, who were axed to death. You know, they were killed by axe. And this happened a lot enough that I think there's even a book about the murders at that time. Somebody now theorizes there may have been some type of transient person, transient serial killer going around on these trains murdering people by axe. But back in the day,
No
they didn't.
technology, no communication, nothing.
Exactly. So they could get away with a lot more.
Wow. Wasn't that just a Christmas downer story? Just saying.
Aren't we all just looking forward to going shopping now? So put an Apple AirTag on your kids before you let them go. But, you know, the other thing that really bugs me is this whole Tommy Terlisa. What the hell is up with that? I mean, 20-year-old, married, had been previously married enough to have a 2-year-old, divorced, engaged to Deborah, broke off the engagement,
Oh my God,
marries,
maybe him and Deborah did it.
maybe. Rusty seems to think so, and there are people that seem to think Deborah has more that she should say. But I don't know. I've read a few things by her. I don't get the vibe that she had anything to do with it. It just seems a little odd because Tommy, less than 2 years after Rachel disappeared, he got a divorce based on abandonment. Then, December 15th, 1976, he married Josephine Beck, who's also 17 years old. And then by June of 1978, they got divorced. And 3 months later, he married 23-year-old Ruby Fox. So I don't know. Tommy seemed to have some issues with women,
Check him out. Jeez.
right? I don't know. But he had an alibi. I don't know. And one of the private investigators, I believe it was John Swaim, or possibly one of the later ones, found that Rachel was pregnant at the time of her disappearance, and it is rumored to have been by her own father. So, but he had stage 4 cancer, and he passed away just 6 months after they went missing. So I have a hard time thinking that a super sick guy could be raping his 17-year-old daughter. I don't know.
Maybe her husband killed her because he knew.
Maybe. I don't know. Rachel's mother did say that when her father passed away, I thought this was kind of sweet before I found out about the rumors that he'd been abusing her. But he said when he passed away, he said that he was going to go find his daughter.
Aw.
Yeah. But no answers for any of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So who knows? Kind of creepy. So, yeah, those are our Ghosts of Christmas Past stories. And next week, we'll be talking about the winter solstice because our episode comes out right on Wednesday, the winter solstice. And we'll also have our episode of Ghosts of Christmas Present.
How exciting.
Yeah, we got lots coming up. So, how are you doing on your shopping, Shell? Are you giving out any Yule presents or any Christmas presents this year?
I am. I am. I must say, I have a close relationship with my Amazon driver currently.
Don't we all?
And, for all of our steady listener folks, first of all, hey. And second of all, sorry we've been a little sketchy lately, but it's been crazy. 'Tis the season for nuttiness.
It
And
has. Yeah, I apologize for our crazy schedule lately.
intentions and reality haven't worked out this last couple weeks. Intentions and reality just are not in sync.
At least we're getting them out, right? They may be late. I don't know if everyone knows this, but the Stoned Witches Hour is entirely a two-woman show. It's just Shell and I. We do everything. We do all our own research. We do our own recording. We do our own editing. We do everything ourselves.
Don't listen to Layla. All I do is sit here and talk. She does all the editing. She actually records it. Like don't listen to her. It's all her. I just talk.
Aw. Well, Shell does beautiful work on our Instagram, so she does work too. But yeah, it's just us. And so we are not professionals. We're doing the best we can. So thank you guys for bearing with us, and we will do much better here coming up.
We've been busy.
So busy.
Busy.
There's
And
not enough weed for this season, I'm telling you.
we both had like allergy issues and sickness at like kids. Like it's just like
Everything.
holidays.
I
Like
got my car towed. Oh,
like
it's been a month, man, but I'm still
yeah.
having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't set your clock to us at the moment. That's all.
But we will be there for you. We're trying. We're trying. So we appreciate your guys' patience. You all are amazing. Thank you to our witchy, weedy listeners.
What witchy, weedy, spooky, spectacular.
Spectacular. What do we call our listeners anyway? I don't know. We'll think of something. But thank you all so much for joining us here on the Stoned Witches Hour for episode 47. Next week, again, 2 episodes, same day, Wheel of the Year, Yule, and also episode 48, Ghosts of Christmas Present, which hopefully will be way less of a downer and much more fun and merry.
Stay high, stay witchy, don't get angry at the store, watch out for the snow, and stay warm. We'll be back in a couple of days, like a week. We'll be here.
Weed is the reason for the season, or something. Maybe it's how we get through the season. I don't know, but I'm going to go smoke more.
If anybody's looking to get us Christmas gifts, by the way, I take a size ounce.
I love it. One size fits all.
Oh,
that's right. And she's picky. She didn't used to be, but yeah. Thank you all so much. And send Chelle ounces. She'll smoke them. We love you guys. Stay high, stay happy, and we'll see you next week on the Stoned Witches Hour.
Peace out.